Yeah. Okay. So what's happening? I got your email there with your notice from some other person who's dropping out of the realm of Alan Watt, I gather.
I thought you might get a kick out of that, so that's good, you know. Some people are seeing it.
He does what he can with what he has, you know.
Yeah.
What the hell?
He kills with repetition.
Yeah.
You know.
You work your way up. Maybe he'll have his own story to tell one day.
Oh, man. It's a collective memory I think he has, though. Yeah. What was I going to say? I was thinking a lot about, I guess, the seriousness of this, of everything. Because I know, you know, if talking to you and in researching this stuff, you kind of, maybe for your, I guess it was like a shock that might last a couple years. You know? Like it's like you almost, like, part of you wants it not to be true, but then you see everything that confirms it is true. Like, I know it's all true, but it's just when you really realize it's true, it's kind of like, wow, this is really something we have to.
It has to kind of absorb into your system over time.
Mm-hmm.
Osmosis, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Because I was reviewing some of the old notes I had taken from, I think, the first couple phone calls when I first called you, and I see, like, I just had stuff written all over this paper, like, upside down, anywhere I could fit ink, you know? So I was just reading through all of that, and I was like, wow. And hearing, you know, because I guess once I talk to you more and more and more, you know, you're just building upon, you know, what you already think that I understand or overstand, and then but seeing stuff from the beginning again, it's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, that's right. You know, it fits better now. So I guess it's working. So now what it is, it's really messed up to think that, like, I think one time you told me that people battle or argue the most with themselves than other people.
Yeah, you don't need an outsider. I think Chopra said that once too.
Oprah? Harpo?
You don't need anybody else to argue with. You got a homemade bunch.
Yeah, that's very true. But now but it's not yourself that you're arguing with, right?
No. It's the cop at the door they put there.
Yeah.
Keep you from having any say. Must always talk to their interpreters. Yeah. There was a time, I would imagine, before this all began, where it was all a discussion between you, the brain, you, the spine, and you, the mouth.
Mm.
But it's kind of interfered with. I know I get a sore neck almost all the time.
I can imagine, yeah.
Like you sleep on a curve or something because it leaves kind of a feeling. You didn't lay down on the right thing, and I'm sure that's all orchestrated for my behalf. You know?
Yeah. The sore neck. Yeah, I know what you mean. If you fall asleep wrong or the pillow was messed up, right?
Yeah.
Get that kink. Yeah, because I was actually kind of the way that I try to hone in on I guess my intuition is to play music. And today it just was, I couldn't connect, and I knew why. I was so mad. You know, I just had like this down like feeling. I was like, oh, I don't feel down, but now I could tell it wasn't my own doing, you know.
You were being reined in.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the Japanese did that, huh?
Yeah. They are experts in miniaturization.
Yeah.
And they learned to do it on the bonsai. But then they were told there are better applications to this concept, and that's to make up a new version of the hermaphrodite. You can't really call it a hermaphrodite because that would be just two components. But this hermaphrodite can only be called pseudo.
Yeah.
It's got so many parts to it, most of which the Neanderthaler never expected to be part of. He thought he was going to be staying back at home and watching all of this on TV. But now he finds out that he's an integral part of the bag man, bag woman concept. He's going for a ride that he never expected.
Yeah.
I guess the computer basically must have kept it to themselves for a long period of time as they gathered up more and more knowledge and converted it to wisdom, and then decided, what do I need this guy for?
Yep.
There's a story in the Observer newspaper in England today, I think it is. I should have looked the date on it, but I saw it today anyways, and it says Neanderthalers didn't disappear. They were eaten by humans. Eaten by humans.
Yeah, they're stuck in the neck still.
They just couldn't get it past their craw, I guess.
Oh, shoot.
They say they found pieces of Neanderthaler that looked like it had been dissected in the same way humans were dissecting their animals at the time. Maybe a few got their comings that way, but I suspect a few got away, like 144,000.
Yeah, I don't think the diet of Neanderthal.
Obviously, they lived until they moved into Africa. They lived a totally isolated environment that was more marshy than anything else. But then you have to ask yourself the question, how did they become idiots of us? Was this a product of sudden cold temperatures? And a lot of people have, medically speaking, died in the cold, and then were basically resuscitated. If it's done slowly, it works. If it's done quickly, it can have cataclysmic effect. And I'm always wondering if that was really the cause, that they can't stand cold, and they have this defect which basically put them into a kind of a hibernation state, I would suspect. Each one having a different part of the brain affected, and therefore each one having a savant part to work with, which made them the geniuses they became, but totally incapacitated. So
Now, would Clan Mother also have the brain power?
That's the reason they call themselves blue bloods.
Huh. They're cold.
Because they froze.
Yeah.
And were thawed again.
Oh, okay. Huh. Yeah. Now, is the brain power similar in Homo habilis?
Well, it obviously was originally, because originally there was a dinosaur. Dinosaur was small like a cat.
Mm-hmm.
That dinosaur climbed trees. And from there, it is responsible for 3 types of offsprings. One is the one that went back down to the ground, and that would be humans and Neanderthals. You can call them the Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger twins. The other one stayed in the trees mostly, and you could call those baboons, I guess. Their world. And the third was jumping from branch to branch and gliding to extend their journey, and over time developed wings that allows them to fly. But the original is still the dinosaur, a small dinosaur. And you look at the people on the ground, the Clan Mothers, and their social engineering is without a doubt having links to how cats act. You could see the cats on the farm around me, and the fact that all of the mothers care for all of the children. Never stuck to this is mine type of thing. Mm-hmm. Mother drops down, all of a sudden 6 babies from different mothers are having dinner, and she just waits them out. And they take turns, different ones, different times of the day. And then at night, these mothers like to be cuddled. So they're always sleeping with their paws extended over the top of each other. Mm-hmm. Can't seem to want to sleep by themselves. It always seems to be a need to cuddle. That's all been passed down through to women, especially over time.
Yeah.
And, the Neanderthalers, on the other hand, don't seem to have had that close a contact. That the likely nourisher was of the water-bound animal, most likely one that could, in fact, come close to the ground. Would not be surprised to be told they had gills over time. Part of the things they talk about now is that the future slave must be trifibian.
Yeah. Yep.
Therefore, would have to have gills. They're going to go in water for more than 10 minutes. Plus the painter from Slovakia that did my painting that I put on their Atlantis SSS, Atlantis 2. I had bought his old collection at one time in the past and had to give probably 75% back when I decided that I wouldn't be making money anymore. Wouldn't be able to pay him because I was paying him on a monthly basis against the entire collection. I kept about half a dozen paintings and gave them back. And most of the other ones were fairly large paintings and they were of people, mostly women, I think all women, at least in appearance, living in water. You could see buildings and houses and stuff like that in there, but they were traveling between by just kind of gliding through the water. So it's very much what they have in mind for the pseudo-hermaphrodite. Boy calls Sue.
Oh, yeah. Jesus. Zeus. Yeah, I've even heard when they're talking about the future slave, you have to have gills, so if it has to repair ships or something, or whatever, it can just stay underwater and make repairs.
And in the movie Waterworld, there, Kevin Costner had gills. And whoever wrote that Waterworld knew. I found it one of the most boring films I ever watched. But it was interesting in some of the symbology that they were dealing with there. The kind of end-of-the-world scenario where a few survivors were strung out all over the place and looking for dry earth, being hunted to extinction. I suspect that some of that is planned as the northern hemisphere is destroyed and a few stragglers survive on top of mountains or lifeboats drifting in the ocean. They have to be found. I suspect that's the role of the International Space Station, manned by the people we call tourists there today. They're just being trained to take over from the military at the appropriate time. The Hubble telescope has just had a couple of elements which are basically scary, at the same time informative. With three new pieces that were to be added, and the second one didn't fit. So they put the third one in the second slot and tried to put the second one in the third slot, and it didn't work there. And they, for whatever reason, had brought on a rebuilt one, made in a different factory. Who knows what's inside of that one? And it happened to just fit fine on the side of the Hubble to make it work properly, but I suspect that its program is more for the future than for the present. And then they added a ring, a docking ring, which they say is when it served its useful purpose, the shuttle would normally just crash someplace on the ground. Yeah. And they think it would be advantageous to dock with it and tow it to a place over the ocean so that it doesn't destroy anybody or anything. But I suspect it's more likely to be taken to a place in orbit higher than something could fall back on Earth, like where the International Space Station is and beyond. And then it could serve as a laser beam, or radiating a beam from the sun even. You know how you, when you used to burn paper.
Focus the light, magnifying glass.
There are two possibilities there. One is to track down some of the survivors and make sure that the area around them burns quickly. And the other one could very well be to focus light onto the moon.
The rocks.
The suggestion is it's hollow, or we wouldn't have Halloween on October 31st. The word ween is just basically the word moon. Yeah. You flip the W, you get an M. E and O are interchangeable, so they're talking about the moon. The pumpkin looks like the moon. and you put a candle inside to make it shine. So if the light from the Hubble was focused on it, it might act something like a microwave oven and heat it up to the point where it explodes and breaks into pieces, billions of pieces raining on the ground.
Oh.
That might also be the role of the aurora borealis. There's an island on James Bay. I forget the name, Akaminsky or something like that. That is now no-go zone in Canada, even for Native people. It has been like that for years now. But it has if you fly over it, you can see a runway. So it's being used by somebody underground. And if you look at the aurora borealis, the northern lights, they call them, it looks like diffused light.
Yeah.
And somebody might have the gadget that assembles all of that and makes it into a beam rather than just light all over the place. That can also be used in some way to energize the breakup of the moon.
And God knows what else they have up there, too, you know.
Yeah, we've been there, and who knows when the first time really was and what they really did.
Yeah.
Then you're dealing with comets, and comet is basically a game of pool.
Yeah.
They don't do anything if they just go through, like an air ball in basketball. But if they hit something, the consequences are known only to physicists who can work out the math. Boing, boing, boing.
Oh, wow.
And what happens when one hits? Then you got the gang working at Fermi in Chicago and at CERN in Switzerland. And they're dealing with hadrons. Hadrons are bags that contain the components of different atoms, each atom being made up of different things, quarks and neutrinos and all kinds of stuff. But contained in a bag, they are an atom. Loose, they're looking for another bag to get in with something else. And every time they get into a bag, they create a new environment. Call it a new lifestyle or new atom, and you have no idea really what it's going to be until it is.
Right.
So by creating collisions underground, you could be, in fact, lighting fusion, fission, whatever, and added to the acetone that is already part of nature to explode volcanoes, and black water off of coal seams. You can easily imagine a concept where the world is turned into quicksand.
Well, Papa's got a brand new bag.
Yeah. And it's not an accident either that, you know, the central thing of a bag is a hadron, and you happen to have a Canada-U.S. military team in Colorado that calls themselves NORAD. See how many letters in NORAD you can find in a hadron. Everything but the H, I think. The H is just basically a symbol for connectivity. Yeah. One thing connected to another thing. So I suspect that what you have in Colorado at NORAD is much more important than keeping an eye on incoming missiles from Russia or Iran or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Its job is linked to CERN and Fermi and collisions. And there, at least in their public statements, Canadians and American military types are equal in their rank and power.
Yep.
I suspect Canadians might be more important in giving the orders, but that's only a suspicion because I haven't been there. But when you consider that presidents of the United States, Roosevelt and Kennedy's and Bush's, all had summer cottages in places very close to a high-speed boat trip to Canada, and that it would be easy to get to a place like Grand Menam Island in the Bay of Fundy, get their instructions. When I was on the Hill, there was a woman that ran what she called a company of Canadians, something to that effect. Her name was Maud Barlow. And I always found it interesting that Maud Barlow had an owl in her name, and Bar at the front of it, which is teacher, rabbi.
Yeah.
And that they had a summer home in Kennebunkport, Maine, right next door to the Bushes. And that she could very well have been the runner, bringing instructions from the Governor General in Canada or the Prime Minister's office or whatever, bringing that information to the presidents of the United States, either by traveling there to their summer home or in the old days having them come to a place like Grand Menam Island in the Bay of Fundy. I've noticed that there's always been travel by the Clintons into Quebec, close to the area in Labrador, where one would suspect it would be an entry point into an underground laboratory, and that there would be an underwater exit from that place in a lake in Nova Scotia called Brador. Nova Scotia is really a funny geography because the mainland is shaped like a number 7, and the attached island of Cape Breton is shaped like a number 6. The Lake Brador is what makes the center of the 6. 76, of course, is an important number because it basically means we're altering women. Women being modeled on number 6, and 7 is the altar. And Canada was incorporated in 1867, and the U.S. in 1776. So each has that 7-6 in its beginnings. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people at the upper levels know all of the things we are discovering day by day.
Well,
you guys are on Long Island.
Yes.
And you have a place called Rye, coming through the Rye. That area was occupied by a certain family called Pierce.
The Bush?
Ms. Pierce married George Bush.
Yeah.
To become Barbara Bush. And of course, Pierce has many connotations.
Like Pierce.
Of course, a lot of the guiding lights for Lewis and Clark expeditions were a group of natives called nez percés, or pierced noses. All of that is linked to the symbology of opening up an ovum, an egg, with a miniature scalpel, really tiny, and getting inside and emptying the egg of its contents and putting in a new concoction, a new cocktail, and closing it up again, and then having it carried to term after it's been fertilized. And lo and behold, you have a sleeper cell someplace in society that can be called upon at the appropriate moment in time, and hell knows what the hell they do. They can do anything. Become politicians, for example.
Yeah.
Or mass murderers of a different kind.
Right. The ones that get in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know that America was a prison colony at the beginning before that duty was handed over to Australia. And there's nothing better than a prison colony for a doctor of genetic engineering. Because who cares about the people there?
Yeah.
And who'll know? So, you take Australia having increased its number of gays and lesbians and cross-gender people from 5 to 15% happened by accident? I don't think so.
Well, so basically any time something is published or kept in a historical record, it's just basically what updates of the plan, or is that what it is? Like the only reason why it's even made public at all is for reference like that?
You have a group of people who are involved in what we call recreation. But they may put the accent on a different syllable. In French, we always said he always puts the accent on the wrong syllable.
Yeah.
And if you put the accent on the wrong syllable, it's not recreation they're all about, it's recreation.
That sounds like they want to wreck creation.
Yeah, that's one version of it. Another version you might consider is that it gets boring being in the moho discontinuity all your life. It gets boring being an idiot setter, not able to function unless you have assistance. Therefore, you gain your jollies by your chosen form of recreation, which is causing misery for others.
Yeah, I guess it's no big deal for them because they created it, right? Created it.
Yeah.
Like
they look at us at this stage of the game, I guess, the same way as one would look at ants on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
As you're running down Wall Street in New York, how many people even think of looking at their feet that there might be an ant making its way across the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Irrelevant to most of us, in the same manner as we are irrelevant to our controllers. We're just things they use and abuse and disuse.
I mean, even on a smaller scale, if you've ever been to a country club and you see how they treat, the valet guys or the chef, they're just the help, Yeah. Well, don't talk to the help, that's how they are. So that's a lower level of it. So I can see how that.
Them come in through the front door. They got their own entrance at the back.
Yeah.
Next to the garbage disposal.
Yeah, don't use that bathroom. No, you have to use that bathroom.
So, it's a task to change these people's attitudes around, but we have a few things in our favor now, since it's become more and more obvious every day that they don't really control it anymore, that they've downloaded sufficient information into computers that it's basically a self-teaching program in the computer, and it's basically taken over the day-to-day operations. And HAL in 2001, The Space Odyssey, is a good thing to remember, that it was not going to take orders from people anymore. And at the end, there's a baby born.
Yeah.
A new type of baby to live in this new type of computer age. Now, the story isn't far from pseudo-hermaphrodite would be the appropriate slave.
A baby was there with no parents. A baby with no parents, just shows a baby at the end, too.
Yeah. They all have to be like Barbie dolls. No genitals in the end.
Yeah.
They keep the feelings, but they can't basically do anything about it. And that's the frustration that is earned from that one activity they planned for people gives you a sense of who they are. They want you to be frustrated all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, priests followed through on that and turned masturbation into a sin. Creation had other ideas, was that when you were alone and didn't have access to a partner, you didn't have to be feeling frustrated all the time. But now it's become a sin. The same way as women's breasts used to be feeding stations, and now they're called secondary sex gender, or secondary gender sexual organs, or some damn thing, which is stupid, but it works, because a child born is focused on a female breast. It doesn't make any difference whether it's male or female. And that feeling is in you for your life. So you will always be attracted to breasts, but not for sexual reasons, unless the priests get their way, and that's anything that's hidden is more attractive than if it's not. So. It's we live in a world of crazy people made by crazy priests and nuns, and if we at least have the ability to speak together among each other about those things which they say should not be spoken of because it might expose what they've done to us, well, then at least that's a beginning.
Yeah.
And, even Neanderthals were not born nasty people. That's social engineering. along the way. And it's usually, if you look at the outcome, you can figure out the source. And the outcome is these people are control freaks. The birth of control freak attitudes comes from not loving yourself, having little sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where we can help them out. You know? And we can assist them in regaining some of the self-worth they rightfully deserved at the beginning, before they became control freaks.
But if they're not down there, we have to talk to whoever is, like the gatekeeper or something. I would.
Well, that's why this farm that I'm on is so important, because I suspect that this place was in fact designed for that purpose, with that purpose in mind originally, by creation. In its geography, in the visitors of the past that have come here, everything basically confirms that something like that is possible here. The geology that I'm standing on has the Canadian Shield below my feet, which in much of the mythology, especially Norse mythology, it's suggestive that that's their roof. Not Tibet. Number one is never the roof, and they call Tibet the roof of the world. So I suspect that because of what it says in all that mythology, that the roof we're talking about is the Canadian Shield. And that's 1,000 feet below my feet, which means it's not that far. If you were to go to the Moho discontinuity, you have to go to the bottom of the ocean. Deepest place is about, I think, 3 miles. Then you have to go through the sediment at another 3 miles. So there you would probably be 6 to 10 miles down before you arrive at the Moho discontinuity, and maybe even further. Whereas here, 1,000 feet might be the way eventually. It begins by performing a drilling operation here and get at least a core sample of the first 125 feet down, and I suspect if I have my geology right, it will be a rock beneath my feet, 800 feet above the Canadian Shield down below, and it suspiciously sounds like the place visited in the Hebrew Bible by a man called Enoch.
Yeah.
And it's his son called Methuselah. And we know what happened after he came out. Some people began to live longer.
Yeah.
300 and some years, 700 and some years, and Methuselah 900 and some years. I suspect that's allegory.
Yeah.
Not one person living 900 some years, but basically having had access to stem cells and being educated in the ways of genetic engineering that allowed a number of Methuselahs to be built, one after the other, in the way the allegory of Jesus is followed by Mary Magdalene.
Right, and they always write everything. They write the future guys of the past, right? So.
Yeah. Well, we are in that return journey. If you look at the news these days, that everything that we're hearing about is going back in time. Of course, interest rates are now at their lowest. That's going back in time. Yeah. Benjamin Button was one of the top nominees at the Academy Awards. That was about going back in time. Right. Netanyahu is again the president of Israel. That's going back in time. A lot of the things we're doing, even today, the winner of the golf tournament, Lucas, what was his last name? Lucas.
I'm not sure.
He's basically a low-ranking golfer. Go back in time. There's another golfer that was in the lead at one time, who had at one time been in the top 10 and dropped to 800 in some position. Yeah. He's now back up. I think he finished second or third or something in the tournament. So, Tiger is back. Nicholson was back.
Yeah, Nicholson.
All of these things are suggestive that we were hermaphrodites once, and we're going back in time. We're going to be hermaphrodites again. The human species, although not strictly what they were before, pseudo, which means phony, hermaphrodite. More elements connected to it than the first time around. And the extra elements deal with having Piggy on your shoulders, taking Piggy for a walk, like kids take their school bags in a bag on their back. Yeah. They put their money in a piggy bank. So we're going back to those days. People are going to have to fight the credit crunch, I guess, by saving more money. The hermaphrodite, though, is only the triune man portion, but there's also the extra pieces, and one is the communications device that will be sent along. We call telos. You don't have to ask; they'll tell you. Our orders are telos. So it's communications back to headquarters on everything you hear and see, 24/7. No matter where you happen to be in the universe at the time, that communication will be ongoing. And finally, well, you have to have a vehicle to get there. And most likely the vehicle will include brainwashing devices other than Piggy, which we normally call media. And the vehicle itself, since we're like peas in a pod, will be a pod for one. Practical name would be iPod.
Yeah.
And all we were taught to say is the French word for yes. Oui. In Spanish, it's sí. In English, it's ECY. Here I am, a 2-in-1, with my added activity of spying on the universe and sending the information back to the two computers in the upper mantle of the earth, Boaz and Joachim. John and the snake. Boaz. Boa is a constrictor.
Yeah.
It squeezes you. It gets rid of the seed and the pulp and the rind, and it keeps the pure energy of an orange. The other one, John, is basically a pimp.
Yeah. John.
User of pimps. And it's a toilet. And it's where your number 2 byproduct gets deposited.
Yeah.
And therefore, you always have to start the name with what it really is all about. And that's why you call it California. Or Canada. In fact, in Canada, the N, since it can be turned sideways, can be made into a C. And the word can be kakada.
Kakada.
Da in Russian means what?
Yes. Yes? Oh, yeah. Da.
Add an S and you have das. It means the. We stand on guard for thee. We stand on guard for the E. Oh, Canada.
All right, like Das Kapital.
Yeah. So there we are. I must excuse myself because through our conversation, the goats, the donkey, and the sheep have been waiting for their water. Since I carry the buckets, I can guarantee you that this is the age of Aquarius. I am the water carrier.
Uh-oh. All right.
Well, I'll talk to you again unless you have a specific quick question to ask.
Here, give me 1 second. Go into my file. If there's nothing there, I'll let you go. My Ask Kealey file.
Yeah.
I remember in your video you mentioned, was it folic acid was bad?
Yeah, folic acid.
Folic acid.
It's not that it's bad, it's that it's terrible when you consider the odds in the matter. You are trading in your functioning brain so that you will not be afflicted with a distorted spine. The odds of that happening are probably 1,000,000 to 1, having a spinal problem. The odds of becoming dumbed down, since the word folic is from the word folie in French, which means crazy. The odds are probably 99 to 1 will be dumbed down. Now, is that a reason for taking folic acid? Only if you scare people by showing them people with spinal bifida and don't explain that this might prevent that once in 1,000,000, but it creates dumbed down people's 99 out of 100. That's why I think it's bad.
It's in every multivitamin, I think, to
Yeah.
just about.
What is a vitamin but a vital mineral? Vital minerals exist in well water.
Mm-hmm.
And the governments remove them so that you then have to go to the health food store and buy them.
Oh. We would have got them just from water.
You could have had it
Mineral water.
in water out in the country like I am, where your water comes from a well, and it's a little harder and therefore not as neat for washing hair and
Yeah, you get the water softens.
Around the bathtub needs to be done more often. But in fact, what is doing that is the vital minerals that creation believed you needed when you were drinking water.
Well, here we are filtering out everything.
It doesn't taste much different, especially if you're having coffee with it. But some people are turned off, and I can understand, that water in a bottle looks cleaner. I love water in a bottle because the bottles basically serve as my fire starters outside. When I'm burning wood and garbage, rather than giving it to the disposal people who walk by with their trucks and tell me I got to put a $2 bill on each bag. Here on the farm we burn it, but sometimes, most of the time, the wood is still damp.
Yeah.
So an empty water bottle provides the additional energy to start the fire properly.
Don't breathe that stuff in.
Yeah, no, you do it at a distance. So it has its purpose. It may not be friendly to a lot of people, but neither is giving $2 to the mafia who collects the garbage.
Yeah, and they make us separate it too, right?
Yeah.
for them.
And they send our garbage to China, where a whole bunch of poor people have to do it all by hand. And
I've seen pictures of that.
Live 35, 40 years instead of 75 or 80. So.
Yeah, they have little children doing that too. I see them like in those little swamps, like picking out all the separating them.
That out of the two, the one I prefer is burning a water bottle with the rest of the fire.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, in that case, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I shall go do my job as the agent of Aquarius. Carry the water. It's a lot like my other task, where I always believe a job begins at the top, not at the bottom, and therefore I dig a lot of holes.
I like that.
And put a post in them.
I've been here.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for all you people to come and help. Have a good day.
Yes, you too.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Bye.